Hi, in this video we will see another concept in finance, which is the present value of a certain future cash flow. To see this in practice, imagine you want to do a trip in 2 years' time and you want to spend 2,000 euros on that trip. If you want to do this, you don't need to have right now the 2,000. You have a little bit less, you deposit it in the bank, you will get interest, and then you have the desired 2,000 euros. This is particularly relevant in finance because you will have a lot of financial assets that have expected future cash flows, and to assess the value of these assets, what you have to do is to get the present value of all those expected future cash flows. Okay? So now to see how we can find the present value, let's look at this example and see how we can get how much you need today. So let's get back to the formula we had in the previous class. So Cn, the capital you have after n periods, is equal to C0 times 1 plus r to the power of n. So this is what we saw in the previous video. Okay? Now, what you have to know is how much do you need to have so the future capital after 2 years is 2,000. So now you are looking at the other way around. Previously you had a certain initial capital and you wanted to know how much you would have after a certain amount of years. Now we have how much you want or how much you will have after a certain amount of years, and you want to know the present value. So what we are doing is looking at this formula and inverting its calculation. So this here will become this. The initial capital you need will be equal to the capital you will have after some years divided by 1 plus r to the power of n. Typically, when we are looking at this relationship, instead of being initial capital and future capital, it will be present value and future value, which is basically the same thing. Okay, so this is the relationship between present value and future value. So if you want to know how much should you have today in order to have 2,000 in 2 years, you simply use this formula. So let's use this with the numbers we have. So 2,000 is the future value. This is how much you need in 2 years. Let's say that the interest rate is 5%. So this here will be 1 plus 5%, and we raise this to the power of 2. Once we do this, we get the present value of these 2,000. So if you want to have 2,000 in 2 years' time, what you have to do is discounting this amount with the interest rate and the number of periods. So this interest rate becomes the discount rate. This is the rate you use to discount this cash flow and find out the present value of these 2,000. So the formula is this one. You can confirm that if you have this amount today, we will have the 2,000 in 2 years. What do you have to do? Let's get back to this formula here. So we saw that once we have the initial capital, we compound with a certain interest rate over a certain amount of periods, and then we will have a future cash flow, the future capital. So if you use the values we got, you have here 1,814. Imagine you have this amount today, then you will compound with an interest rate of 5% throughout 2 years. So we are just confirming that this here will be 2,000. And if you do this in your calculator, you will find this. So now we found out how we get the formula and the values for the present value, how you should discount a certain future cash flow to get the present value, and we will use this a lot throughout this course or throughout any other finance course.